Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Say, and today's video I'm going to be talking about being a mixed race couple in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So first, a little bit about me. I'm an ex-Mormon convert. I was married. I am now divorced. I have a daughter. I was married to an African American, so we were a mixed race couple. And although we are both not white, neither one of us knew about the church's racist history. It was never taught to either one of us. Not even him, being an African American, was he taught about the church's racist history. So a little bit about the church's racist history. Since the beginning of the church, they have had the view that black people, because of the color of their skin, are less righteous because of the mark of Cain, which Cain was Adam and Eve's son, and he killed his brother Abel. So the mark of Cain is because Cain killed his brother. So that's one reason why they say black people have their color skin, is because they're descendants of Cain, and that was passed down through the generations. Another story of why they have the black skin has to do with Noah's son Canaan and the curse of Ham, which I'm not really sure about all the details of that, but two different reasons of why black people have that color skin and why it makes them less righteous. Black people weren't able to get the priesthood until 1978. My mom was born in 1966. So that happened not that long ago. So the whole entire time, from the time the church was established in the 1800s all the way to 1978, black people were not allowed to have the priesthood because they were less righteous because of the color of their skin. And the only reason why the church allowed them finally by 1978 to get the priesthood is because of all of the political stuff that was going on, all of the civil rights stuff that was going on, the civil rights movement and segregation being ended. That was the only reason. All of a sudden, the authorities of the church had revelation that now black members could hold the priesthood, black men. So that is a little bit of the history of the church's racism. Now, I was a member of the church. I got baptized in 2012, and I met my ex-husband in 2016. So I was a member of the church for 4 years before I even met him. Not one time was it ever told to me about the church's history. Was it ever said to me about black people could not have the priesthood, black men could not have the priesthood until 1978. Never mentioned anywhere, nothing to do with race. In fact, it was more, I was taught that everybody was equal in the eyes of God. God is no judge of, no judge of person, no judge of what you do in life, how you look, who you are. Everybody is the same. Everybody has blood. Everybody is his child. He loves everyone. So finding out that the church had this history that I had no idea about, it was pretty shocking. So it's even crazier to think that my ex-husband, he's African American. And during this whole entire time, while he was being taught by the missionaries, it was never mentioned, never brought up, nothing was ever said. And you would think that that's a pretty important piece of the history of a church that you're deciding to become a member of. So even though this was an important piece of information, it was withheld the whole entire time. So my ex-husband was going through all the lessons. The missionaries were teaching him everything about the priesthood. Did they mention that black men weren't able to have the priesthood until 1978? No. But he was very encouraged to move towards getting the priesthood after baptism. It was like that was something that needed to be held from him, so that way he would go all the way through with being baptized and becoming a member. Because after he was baptized, then all of a sudden we learned about the history. One of the brothers in the church who was African, I think if I remember correctly, he was from Nigeria. One day, not long after my husband was baptized, it was during church, he came up to us and he gave my husband this book and he said that he needed to read it. And we both assumed that it was, just another book about church history, so that way he could understand more, learn more. We didn't really think anything of it until we got home and he started reading it, and that's where we learned about this racist history, because the book explained why the church had this view. We could not believe all of this stuff that we were reading in the book, and nobody ever mentioned it to us. No one. And for a while there, my ex-husband, even though he was newly baptized, he was like, I don't know if I should be a member of this church anymore. And yeah, I understood, because I started thinking like, wow, this is something really important about church history that was not taught, never mentioned. No one even breathed an essence of this teaching, of this history at all, which was kind of shocking. But after we talked about it, we decided, you know what? It's in the past. It's not what's going on now. He's already baptized. I've been a member of the church for how long? So we decided together we were going to continue to be members, continue going to church, even though we felt like we were lied to. So after we got over that, we continued going to church. It almost seemed like they gave my ex-husband extra attention. Now, don't get me wrong, I was there when a lot of new members came to the church, and I saw a lot of different men get baptized in those 4 years before I met him. So it wasn't uncommon that they started to work with the brothers after they were baptized to get their priesthood. But it seemed like they worked with my husband even more. Like they wanted him to get the priesthood or have the priesthood so bad. It was like a constant talking to him all throughout the week, and certain brothers checking in on him, and they would talk to him. I don't know what they would talk to him about, but he told them some stuff about things he was struggling with and dealing with, and they were working with him to get through those. They wanted him to have the priesthood so bad. And looking back at it, I'm like, so did they want him to have the priesthood because they really wanted him to have the priesthood as a new member, or did they want him to have the priesthood because of the color of his skin? Looking back at it, it seemed like it was something for them to do to kind of forget about the past. If they hurried up and were able to get him the priesthood, then the past wouldn't really matter, because now the church is accepting and the church wants their black members to have the priesthood and works with them so closely in order for them to get it. So it's all tactics. It seems like all tactics of how to keep people blinded and in this loop, because them giving my ex-husband extra attention, it really motivated him and encouraged him. He felt like he had a community. He felt like he was really cared about. And I think that's exactly what they wanted. So he worked to get the Aaronic priesthood, and he had the priesthood. But after he had the Aaronic priesthood, it was like, okay, you've got the Aaronic priesthood. Now we need to work with you to get the Melchizedek priesthood. And they have to be picky getting the Aaronic priesthood, because, you have to be following the gospel. You have to be living right. You have to be clean in order to have this priesthood, so that way you can use the priesthood. But the Melchizedek priesthood is like the big step, the one where you can give people blessings and clean homes and and stuff like that. So after he had the Aaronic priesthood, it was like, okay, let's slow down a minute. Now that you have the Aaronic priesthood, that's good enough for now. So let's have you use your Aaronic priesthood, pass out the sacrament, teach, do stuff like that, and we'll work on it. So they worked really, 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 really fast to get the Aaronic priesthood, but the Melchizedek priesthood, then it slowed down. I don't know if that was on purpose, but after they stopped working with him so closely, I think that's what made him kind of be like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to keep going to church, because it was like, well, what's the point? You know, I want the Melchizedek priesthood, but I can't have it because of this. So why even keep trying? I feel like the church was kind of lucky that he even decided to be active and get the Aaronic priesthood the way that he did. Because if I feel like if they would not have motivated him so much and worked so closely with him and, you know, made him feel a certain way about the Aaronic priesthood, he probably would have stopped being a member and stopped going to church way before that. But because they were working so close with him, he felt important, which is key. If you feel important, you'll continue to do something. So after he didn't feel important anymore, he was like, why even do it? Which, you know, even though we're not together, I want nothing to do with him, I still understand. I still understand why he decided that he didn't want to continue to keep going to church. They knew that if this was something that they taught people that they're trying to convince to be members, this would definitely make people change their minds. I mean, I would have changed my mind if I was taught about this on my porch by my missionaries, if they taught that, well, the church believed that black members were less righteous because of the color of their skin and they're cursed because of Cain. I'd have been like, yeah, no, this isn't the place for me. So they purposely do not tell people about this because they know people would not choose to be members. They would choose not to get baptized. I mean, it's only common sense, right? Going on to the church website and reading what they have on there. And it's so interesting to read how they justify this history. If you go on to, even if you Google race and the priesthood LDS, it pops up race and the priesthood. And in this, I don't know what they call it, an article or something that they wrote for the church's website to explain this history. It's ridiculous. It's really, really ridiculous. First of all, for this church to be the one true church, they claim that we have this prophet and he's the mouthpiece for God. He's the closest thing that we could ever have to speaking with Heavenly Father. And the prophet Joseph Smith that founded the church was this wonderful guy, and there were no problems in the church whatsoever. If he was so perfect and was used by Heavenly Father and literally saw Heavenly Father in Jesus Christ and was this very spiritual, holy man, why would the church have any racist background? So the way it explains this is that during those times in the 1800s, everything in daily life, from politics to religion to everything, race was a big deal. So during those times, that's why the church had this view, was because race was such a big thing back in those days. But if this is supposed to be the one true church, and Joseph Smith actually was so close with Heavenly Father that he saw him, he saw Jesus Christ, wouldn't he preach that everyone is equal, why would there even be a racist policy? If he was following God, why would he be going with what was going on around him? Why would he say that black people are less righteous because of the curse of Cain or the mark of Cain? Why would he be saying all this if he truly was a prophet, if he truly was speaking for God? Because, again, God is no judger of persons. He doesn't care about any of that stuff, right? So, how could it be both at one time? How could it be the one true church, but also follow what's going on around them in their times? Go by what the social issues are. So that right there is in this article is like, so you're admitting that Joseph Smith and other church leaders at this time were going on with the social norms, going with the social norms of the time, not what God wanted. Also, in the article, it talks about how even in the times that the church was going with these racist policies, there were still black members who were able to have the priesthood. It talks about two, that even in the from 1852 until 1972, that there were at least two black men who held the priesthood and were faithful members. And it talks about one woman who was able to go to the temple and do baptisms. Like, out of all that time, pretty much three black members that were able to have the priesthood or to go to the temple, like, that shows that the church wasn't racist because they were able to say, hey, no, we've had black members who've had the priesthood, and they were very noble, they were very honorable, they were very faithful. Like, talking about these members like it was a miracle that they were so faithful and they were such good members. Which, to me, reading that article, I'm just like, so because there were a couple black members and one of the church leaders, I think maybe it was Brigham Young, I don't remember, but one of the church leaders was speaking so highly of one of these black priesthood holders that he even mentioned in there that, and he's African. What does that have to do with anything? So this whole article, it's supposed to, I don't want to say justify, but it's supposed to convince people that the church wasn't racist, or that the church history of racism wasn't a big deal because it was part of the social norm, when the whole entire time they're preaching that this is the true church, that God is has no judgment of individual people. Everyone is equal to him. Everyone is his son or his daughter. The whole article, it was like it was written to help the church, but really it hurts them, because as you're reading it, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like apologetics, pretty much. All of these reasons of why the church had this history and why it really wasn't that wrong. It was normal. And now they don't even go by the history. They don't even teach it. They don't believe the same anymore. So why even say anything, right? Out of sight, out of mind. Doesn't exist if you don't tell anyone about it. So the whole thing is just so toxic. The church is willing to completely omit history, completely omit any sort of teachings about the history, especially to the people that need to know the history the most. If my ex-husband, if I would have known even about this history, I'd have been like, this is not the church for me. My ex-husband would not have chosen to become a member. He would not have seen it as a good thing the way that he did, because no one ever taught him. No one ever said, hey, you're about to join a church who not that long ago didn't even think that people with your color skin are worthy enough to have the priesthood, are worthy enough to go to the temple, are worthy enough to do baptisms for the dead. If they would have led with that, and I'm sure if they would lead with that when they're teaching people, they would hardly get new members. Hardly get new members. And who knows if the missionaries who are out teaching even know. I don't, honestly, like, I loved my missionaries. My missionaries were so awesome. I'm so fond of them. And I, in my heart of hearts, really don't believe that they even knew this history when they were teaching me. I don't think the sister missionaries that taught my ex-husband knew about this history. And I wonder if the other black men who were members, who were also in our ward, if they knew about the history when they decided to get baptized, or if they learned about it afterwards like we did. It just shows you how far the church is willing to go just to gain new members. They're willing to lie. They're willing to omit truth. They're willing to change the history of the church and what they teach just to have members, just to gain new members, just to keep members. And it's all so toxic. It's all a cycle. And even though when I was in the middle of it, at the time when we stopped going to church, I was hurt that we weren't going to church anymore, but I didn't feel comfortable going to church. He didn't want to go to church. At the time, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so awful. I'm so unworthy. We're not even going to church anymore. Now, I'm like, that was a blessing in disguise. It really was. Because if we would have continued to go to church and continued to just play the part of a good Mormon family, it would have done more damage than what it did. I want to say that if we didn't find out about that history until way down the line, that would have felt more like how I felt when I found out everything that I learned about the church was not true. And that's actually going to be my next video. I'm going to do a video on the history that I was taught versus the history that is true. So I wasn't taught anything about race, so I'm not going to mention that in that video, which is why I wanted to make this video, because I felt like it was completely separate. I'm sure that there are other members who have the same experience, not learning this history until after they were baptized. And I'm thankful that I'm able to make this video and talk about it, because I know that there are other members who need to hear it. Because being lied to by someone or something, this entity that you believe loves you and cares for you and wants the best for you, hurts so much and can make you feel so unworthy and so low and have no self-love. Can make you feel worthless. So remember, you are worthy, you are always enough, and you are loved unconditionally. All right, you guys, join me for the next video, and until then, have a good one. Mwah.